Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to give it another couple minutes for others to join us, and we will get started soon.
Good morning, everyone. We'll begin in just 1 second, waiting for just one or two more people to log on. Okay, I think we will go ahead and get started. Again, good morning. Welcome to today's webinar, the 2024 NOFO Illinois Works Performance-Based Payment Model. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Over the next 2 hours and 15 minutes, you will have the opportunity to learn about the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Performance-Based Reimbursement Model. The target audience for this program is individuals accountable for identifying and or completing applications for the funding opportunity. In this instance, the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Notice of Funding Opportunity, or the NOFO. Job titles may include but are not limited to program administrators, grant writers, fund developers, program managers, and also program coordinators. My name is Monica Pruitt. I am one of the grant managers for the pre-apprenticeship program. As I'm still somewhat new to the program and I have lots to learn, I'm happy to have the opportunity to learn right along with you today as we discuss the payment model for the pre-apprenticeship program. The facilitator for today is Dan Martinez. Dan, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, and I look forward to talking with you in a bit.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. In addition to Dan and myself, the Illinois Works has a team of passionate professionals committed to supporting your pre-apprenticeship program success. The current team consists of Dr. Norman Ruano, Deputy Director of Illinois Works, Dan, who you just met, myself, Dr. Anna Badar. Anna, would you like to say good morning?
Good morning. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Anna. We have Dr. Jeff Doolittle.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be with you today.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. We have Dr. Carlita Alston.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you here today.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Carlita. And last but not least, we have Dr. Gia Suggs, who is the Professional Development Lead for Training Analyst and our Program Coach.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome.
Thank you, Gia. Okay, so in addition to the team you just met, there's also a team accountable for the apprenticeship initiative, a team accountable for the bid credit program, and one for career services. For more information on these programs, please refer to the Introduction to Illinois Works and its program session recording, which is available on our NOFO page. A link is being placed in the chat for you. Thank you, Dr. Carlita. Okay, so Illinois Works was created as a result of Governor Pritzker's historic $45 billion capital plan and his commitment to expanding equity in Illinois' construction workforce. Illinois Works grantees are a part of an exciting new initiative that will create opportunities for Illinois residents, businesses, communities, and families. In furtherance of that goal, the Office of Illinois Works launched the pre-apprenticeship program in 2022 and debuted the program with a performance-based payment model. This model follows national best practices and is designed to fund tangible, community-focused impact. During this course, you will be provided with the framework for the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship performance-based pay model and structure. Okay, so let's get into our course objectives. By the end of this training, you will be able to explain the impact of Governor Pritzker's historic $45 billion capital plan, describe the features of the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program, list the key features of the performance-based payment model, describe each of the funding benchmarks, determine monthly reimbursement maximum, describe the role of the Illinois Works Reporting System, which we refer to as IWRS, comply with Grant Accountability and Transparency Act or GATA requirements, and accurately and timely submit required, standardized GATA reports tied to the grant agreement. And those are your periodic financial report for the PFR and the periodic performance report, which is the PPR. Are there any questions about the content before we move on? And yes, of course, the session is being recorded. They are recorded and they are always saved to the NOFO landing page, which that link is put into the chat for you. Okay. Again, we also are sharing our Illinois Works email address. Feel free to use that address should you have any questions either during or after the presentation today. Okay, so let's move on to the next section. So in section 2, again, I have the opportunity to welcome you. By the end of this section, you will be able to identify your fellow session participants, use the WebEx features and functions to fully participate in the training, and identify what you have learned. In order for you to be fully engaged, let us review some basic WebEx system functions. We have a mute and an unmute button at the bottom of the screen, both the stop and the start video for your camera. And please feel free to show your lovely faces this morning. There's the raise hand feature. If you have questions, please feel free to use that feature. There's the emojis, which, hey, if we're doing a really good job, give us a hand clap, or if I'm doing really bad, thumbs down. There's the chat feature, which of course you have the ability to ask questions. And then there is the groups feature, which we will not be using this during the webinar. We ask that in order for us all to have the best experience, to please keep your line muted to help manage potential interruptions during the call. Of course, your line can be unmuted in order to ask questions if you need to. Okay, let's jump into the Mentimeter. So if you log into the website on this slide and enter the code, This is the Mentimeter, which you would use to engage with us throughout the presentation today. Okay, so what we're going to ask you to do after you've had another moment or two to get into the Mentimeter is to use the Mentimeter to share your name, your organization or agency, your role within the agency, and also your geographic location. Okay. So who do we have with us today? Feel like our responses are coming. Is everybody able to get into Mentimeter okay? Let's give it another moment. It's fine. Also, if you'd like to just maybe throw your name in the chat, that'd be fantastic. Yeah. Let me ask someone from my team. Do we know if the Mentimeter is working correctly this morning? Good morning, Mark. Welcome. Glad to see you here.
I did test it this morning, including going in as a participant. So
Okay,
there we go.
there we go. Maybe things were just working a little slowly this morning. Good morning, Cheryl. Thanks for being here. Merrick, welcome back. I know you've been on the other presentation, so we're glad to see you again. And I know we also have a few folks here from Lincoln Land. I see Chris Edmonds back, also Michelle Post Flynn. Okay, thank you all. The important part is that you're here and we're really happy to have you. So thank you so much for participating. So now we're going to use the Mentimeter to answer the following question. Okay. And the question, is there anything beyond what was articulated in the course objective you would like to cover today? What would you like to know about today? Or also feel free to give us an NA if the objectives clearly articulated exactly what you need to know today, how reimbursement works. Okay, then we'll definitely get into that in a later section. Okay, the objectives cover it. Thank you. All right. Now we have a few more people on the line. Is there anything beyond what we've already said we talk about that you'd like for us to cover today? Okay. In that case then, we're going to move on, but once again, we're going to share the email address in the chat just in case there are questions that you may have. There we go. All right. Thank you to those who participated. We appreciate it. So let's move on to section 3, which for some of you will be a review, a much shorter review as to the introduction to Illinois Works. By the end of this section, you will be able to explain the impact of Governor Pritzker's historic $45 billion capital plan, describe the relationship between DCO and Illinois Works, list the 3 Illinois Works key programs, describe the features of the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program, and identify the goals of Illinois Works. So let's talk about the governor's economic plan. Illinois Works was created as a result of Governor Pritzker's historic $45 billion capital plan, Rebuild Illinois, and his commitment to expanding equity in the Illinois construction workforce. This is a top priority of the governor's 5-year economic plan. With this new capital funding set to pave the way for tens of thousands of jobs over the next decade, the Illinois Works Jobs Program Act was intentionally designed to increase equity and opportunity in capital construction jobs. The intention is to reinvigorate the workforce in Illinois for the future. If you attended the Introduction to Illinois Works and its programs webinar, some of this will sound very familiar to you. If you have not, if you did not attend that section, we do encourage you to view the recording on the Illinois Works NOFO site. So let's talk about DCO in Illinois Works. The Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, or DCEO's mission is to support and maintain a climate that enables a strong economy for its customers, taxpayers, businesses, workers, and communities by keeping, attracting, and growing businesses, maintaining a skilled workforce, and enhancing communities so that the climate here is one in which businesses, both small and large, and their workers can succeed to the greatest extent possible. DCEO delivers impactful and efficient programs and services. Given Governor Pritzker's commitment to expanding equity in Illinois' construction workforce, the Illinois Works Jobs Program Act was intentionally designed to increase equity and opportunity in capital construction projects. The passing of this act led to the creation of the Office of Illinois Works, a bureau within DCEO tasked with the responsibility of implementing the Illinois Works key programs. The implementation of Illinois Works was driven by data that showed for too long the construction industry and the trades have not been equitably accessible for diverse communities, with fewer than 10% of the best paid apprenticeships extended to women and minorities. So Illinois Works is an innovative workforce development model. This unique and innovative model was designed to create job demand, a talent pipeline, and incentives to hire and retain. Typically, workforce development models have one or perhaps even two of these key components. Any one or combination of any two will substantially impact the workforce. The Illinois Works program encompasses all three of these key components to create a comprehensive response to workforce development at all levels. Illinois Works is a one-of-a-kind initiative, and it is in a unique position to make a huge difference. So you've heard these before, but let's reemphasize again the geographic priority areas that are included in this NOFO. We have Central Region, or Region 1, which is Sangamon County. North Central Region, Region 3, encompasses Peoria County and McLean County. We have Region 4, which includes DeKalb, DuPage, Kane, Kankakee, Kendall, McHenry, and Will counties, and also suburban Cook County. Region 6 includes LaSalle County, Rock Island County, and Whiteside County. We have the Southeast Region, Region 7, which includes Marion County and Lawrence County. And then last but not least, the Southern Region, Region 8, which includes Jackson County. These are the areas of focus. However, applicants outside of these regions will also receive funding consideration. To see the geographic boundaries of these economic development regions, a link is being provided for you in the chat.
Monica, we have a question in the chat.
Okay.
Is there a memorandum of understanding template for use by application partner organizations?
I don't know. Dan, do you happen to know? I have not checked the attachments on the NOFO website. Is there a memorandum of understanding template?
You know what? I will check that on the website. I know we do not have one in our grantee manual, but I can look at the landing page and I'll place the answer in the chat.
Okay, thank you so much, Dan. Thank you, Carlita, for the question. So let's talk about the three key programs while Dan takes care of that for us. The DCEO Office of Illinois Works, with the support and partnerships of communities, the building trades, and the construction industry, deliver three key programs. They are the Illinois Works Apprenticeship Initiative, the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program, and the Illinois Works Bid Credit Program. For additional details about these programs, of course, view the Introduction to Illinois Works and its programs webinar recording on the Illinois Works NOFO site. The focus of the NOFO that you're interested in here is the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. Okay. Let's go on and talk about the talent pipeline. So the Illinois Works Apprenticeship Initiative creates demand for jobs, and the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program creates the pipeline of diverse candidates to help respond to that demand. The Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program creates a qualified talent pipeline to fill job opportunities with diverse candidates. It launched in 2022 with 23 programs. The Illinois Works Provider Network has been expanded to 36 for the 2024 grant year. This NOFO will allow the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program to fund approximately 35 programs throughout the state, including new grantees serving more than 1,400 residents. This program delivers pre-apprenticeship skills training through a network of community-based organizations, including community colleges, faith-based organizations, and business associations, amongst others. Participants of the program attend tuition free and receive a stipend and other supportive services to help address systemic barriers which prevent them from entering the construction industry. Experienced and new providers are encouraged to apply, along with existing Illinois Works grantees who propose to serve a different geographic area or economic development region than they were originally contracted to serve. Also, existing grantees who have been in the network for 3 years and are interested in renewing their funding must also apply through this NOFO. Priority will be given to applicants serving priority economic development regions and underrepresented populations as outlined in the NOFO. As a reminder, the due date for application materials is Friday, August 30th, 2024 by 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. If Illinois Works achieves its goals, we will have successfully partnered with community stakeholders to provide a career pathway for residents in disadvantaged communities, provide eligible apprentices with the skills for lifelong job security, promote construction as a viable job industry for women and minority communities, provide the construction industry with a consistent skilled workforce for generations to come, and we will have created new partnerships between state agencies and community organizations. Before we move on to the Mentimeter, Carlita, are there any questions in the chat?
We do have one. Can you
Okay.
repeat yes, can you repeat the number of individuals you need to serve on this award, please?
The number of individuals we need to serve? The, the 35 programs total that will be funding throughout the state will serve more than 1,400 residents. I hope that was the question. Okay. All right, then I think we're ready to jump back into Mentimeter and answer the question. If Illinois Works is successful in achieving its goals, what impact will it have on Illinois communities? Please go to the Mentimeters. If Illinois Works is successful in achieving its goals, what impact will it have on Illinois communities? And just as a hint, there were 5. Jobs, absolutely. Yes, jobs. Opportunities for minorities, absolutely. And in particular, women, other underrepresented populations, jobs, more job opportunities. Yes. Support for employers, minorities and women's jobs, absolutely. You guys get it. Those are absolutely the goals of the Illinois Works program. Livable wages, 100%. Community stability, livable wages, right? We're trying to eradicate poverty, economic growth. Thank you. Thank you all so much for responding. Those are all exactly the right answers. And as you have just shared, the success of this program is critical for communities, businesses in these communities, and those employed by those businesses. So together, we are in a unique position to make a significant difference. So thank you all. Okay, we are going to do another practice round here in Mentimeter. I'm going to give you just a minute, maybe get to the questions. All right. So it looks like we have a few questions here that we're going to go to. You will be asked to submit your name. If you don't choose to submit your name, you can pick a character that you can use to represent you, and that character will help us keep track of your score. Okay, so the questions will be framed as true or false. Once a question appears on the screen, you will have a few seconds to consider the question. Then the options will appear. You will have 10 seconds to enter your response. For select questions, you will earn points for answering questions quickly and for answering questions accurately. If you are among the top scorers, you or your character will appear at the top of the leaderboard. So let's get started with question 1. Question 1. Illinois Works was created as a result. Give us a second. We're going to get to question 1. And I will go ahead and read the question. You can start thinking about it until it appears. Illinois Works was created as a result of Governor Pritzker's commitment to expanding equity in the Illinois construction workforce. And your options will be true or false. Okay. Well, let's see. Maybe question 1. Look, we know that answer is true. So let's see if question 2 will appear for us.
Let's see, Anna, it enter right there
Yeah.
at the bottom.
Ah, yes, thank you.
There it is.
Yes, Illinois Works is a top priority of the governor's 5-year economic plan resulting from his historic, I believe it's $45 billion capital plan. Ah, I'm sorry I gave that away. So the question actually was Illinois Works is a top priority of the governor's 5-year economic plan resulting from his historic $25 billion capital plan. So the answer would have been false because the answer was actually 45 billion. All right, we worked out the kinks. I think we got it now for question 3. Thank you, Agent X9. It looks like you're leading the leaderboard. All right, 516 points. Okay, question 3. Illinois Work is an innovative model to reinvigorate our workforce for the future. Is that true or false? Illinois Work is an innovative model to reinvigorate our workforce for the future. True or false? And congratulations to everyone who said true, including the folks in the chat. I see you there. The answer is true. Okay. And it looks like we have a few others who have joined the leaderboard. Looks like we have a very close race. All right, but right now it looks like Agent X9 is still in the lead with CE coming up real close behind. So let's see. Question 4. The Illinois Works Job Program Act was intentionally designed to take advantage of the thousands of capital construction jobs in Illinois. Nope. Okay. That's question 5. Let's go ahead and skip to that one. The Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program was launched in 2022 with 23 programs. The Illinois Works Provider Network expanded to 36 for the 2024 year. Thank you all who responded. Yes, that answer is true. All right. Thank you all for participating with the glitches and all. It looks like we have a full leaderboard with Agent X9. Looks like coming out on top this time. So thank you all for playing along and participating. We really do appreciate that. So, okay. Here's a question here. Have you had previous experience managing a performance-based reimbursement model? Right now, I'm seeing more yeses than nos. I see an additional yes in the chat. Okay, I think we have about 8 folks responding. So at this point, about half of the 8 have had experience in a performance-based reimbursement model. Carlita, well, okay, we got more answers here. 4 yeses. Oh boy. All right. Are there any questions about the information that I've just gone over? If so, please feel free to unmute your line, or you may post your questions in the chat.
Hey, Monica, there are no questions in chat at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jeff. And if there are no questions, thank you all for your attention. I am going to pass the mic to Dan Martinez, who's going to talk about what we really came to hear about, which is the payment-based reimbursement model. So I'm giving it to you, Dan.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Monica.
Absolutely.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So as Monica said, we are going to talk about the Illinois Works performance-based reimbursement model. So in this section, we're going to make sure you're able to identify the key features of our performance-based payment model, describe each of the funding benchmarks, explain the role of the Illinois Works grant manager, determine the monthly reimbursement maximum, describe the utility of the monthly compliance report and payment worksheet, and explain how grantees earn what we call carryover credits and explain those. So the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program utilizes a performance-based payment model. This model is rooted in the belief that grant funding should be based on an organization's tangible impact in their community. Illinois Works is motivated to produce real change in Illinois, which has driven the implementation of a performance-based payment model to complement the existing state of Illinois reimbursement model. So it's the combination of performance and allowable expenses that will dictate reimbursement. We'll take a deeper dive into how these two interact with each other later in this section. But first, I think we had already asked everyone if they, had a experience managing a reimbursement model. So I think we had just done that in Mentimeter. So let's move on to some of the next one here. What are some of the adjectives you might use to describe one of the performance-based payment models that you have utilized? So if the Mentimeter link is being placed in the chat, so you can just click on that link, or you can go to menti.com and enter the code. So there are 2 ways of accessing that. So again, if you can just share with us your thoughts of the for those of you that had experience with it, or maybe you've heard of other models. What have you heard from other people about it? So we'd like to get a sense of your familiarity and how those were operationalized. Okay, so we have some, they can be effective. They're obviously based on numbers and outcomes. It really has to do with enrollment and placement. Yeah, those are some metrics that we're going to discuss in just a moment. So this hits on a lot of the key items there. The Illinois Works performance-based model has been structured to leverage the accountability component of a performance-based model while creating a structure that provides additional funding opportunities. So one of the things we would definitely like to stress is that the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunities Office of Illinois Works is highly invested in your success and the success of our grantees. It's critical that we help our grantees be successful, because that's the only way to actually serve the residents of the state of Illinois. So this performance-based payment model graphic is seeking to explain the interaction between the impact and the outcomes and the reimbursement model. So it's this combination of performance-based and reimbursement models that will ultimately dictate the amount of funding available for reimbursement, while grantees must still submit allowable expenses to access this funding. So in other words, the first part of the model is explaining that the funding will be based on your performance, but then even once you have unlocked that performance-based payment or reimbursement eligibility, one must still submit allowable costs to the Office of Grants Management for reimbursement. This is the heart of the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program. So the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program payment model was introduced by DCEO through the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program by aligning with other municipalities and state agencies that already utilize this model. The program's model overlays the performance-based payment model on top of the state's reimbursement model, as I had just explained. And DCEO, along with the Office of Illinois Works, are driven to produce real change in the Illinois construction industry. We feel that this performance-based payment model can assist us in doing that. And again, all of these are ultimately linked to reimbursement. So if grantees do not meet their metrics, if they earn less, they may wind up earning less funding than their initial grant award had indicated. On the other hand, if they exceed their metrics, and we're going to discuss how those metrics are determined in just a moment, and if they exceed those metrics, they can earn funding beyond their initial grant award. What enables this is our live real-time reporting in what we call the Illinois Works Reporting System, IWRS for short. DCO makes these reimbursements available on a monthly basis through something we call compliance. We'll share more information about IWRS and how that model works a little bit later. Now, grantees will have the right to appeal to the Office of Illinois Works if the grantee feels that one of their outcomes or some of their outcome metrics were missed due to variables outside of their control. So in other words, as we go through the compliance process in the Office of Illinois Works, your grant manager identifies their reimbursement outcomes. If a grantee feels that that something was missed, they have the right to appeal that outcome. And the performance-based payment models fund programs so that they have a tangible impact on the community. So I mentioned just now some of the funding benchmarks. So there are 4 funding benchmarks for the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. So enrollment, completion, transition, and closeout reports. Each of these metrics is connected to a percentage based on the overall grant award. And because this performance is a performance-based model, not purely an outcome-based model, organizations can receive reimbursement funds related to benchmarks while working toward their goal. So this is not something where you're funded in advance. It's not something where you're funded at the end of the grant year or at the end of the program. There are funding opportunities for reimbursement throughout the program on a monthly basis. Additional funding beyond their initial grant award is available to grantees, as I mentioned, if the outcome metrics are exceeded based on something we call a per participant allotment. Now, keep in mind that these funding reimbursement eligibilities will still need to be based on expenses and reimbursement of an approved Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program budget. So let's take a look at these funding benchmarks a little bit more individually. So for enrollment, we talk about enrollment as an eligible individual who has completed the various program requirements of pre-screening, submitting an application, participating in a standardized interview, and has received an offer from the grantee to attend the program, has accepted the offer, and has started training. That is what we view as an enrollment. And as I've mentioned, the Illinois Works grant managers go through a monthly process to verify those individuals that have successfully enrolled in the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. For completion, that is an individual who has not only begun the instruction, but then successfully completed all of the required modules and assessments, attendance levels. They've attained the required industry recognized certifications and credentials for that particular program. And then the Illinois Works grant manager, again, on a monthly basis, verifies those completion benchmarks on behalf of that grantee. Now, transitions have several components to them. The transition funding benchmark is composed of several different metrics that depend on the path that the participant has chosen after completing the program. So as we mentioned earlier, one of the goals of Illinois Works is to promote construction as a viable job industry and career pathway for residents of Illinois, while also providing the construction industry with a consistent skilled workforce. Therefore, the primary goal of the transition benchmark is enrollment of Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program graduates into U.S. Department of Labor registered apprenticeship programs. So this outcome is referred to as a primary transition. So let's take a look in a little bit more depth of what those transitions look like. Next slide, please. So as we can see, the transitions are broken into several different metrics. The first one, the ultimate goal of the pre-apprenticeship program, is what we refer to as a primary transition final. And it reflects 100% of the credit on a per participant basis that a grantee can receive for a participant. Again, the definition of a primary transition final is a graduate of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program who has enrolled in or has been sponsored into a construction-focused DOL registered apprenticeship program. Now, the transition program or the transition outcome that commonly is achieved prior to the primary transition final is the primary transition preliminary. So the definition of this status is a graduate of the pre-apprenticeship program who has applied to a construction focused DOL registered apprenticeship program. So it's generally kind of the first step toward getting that final. This intermediary step is allowed to earn a 75% of the total credit on a per participant basis. So as they work their way toward that transition final, primary transition final, the grantee on behalf of that participant will earn financial credit of 75%. So as I mentioned, and the name applies, this is that first step toward receiving that primary transition final goal or outcome. If the participant receives the primary final after receiving that primary preliminary outcome, the awarded outcome will be changed to primary final, and the remaining 25% will be provided so that the full 100% credit will have been achieved. This process also applies to the remaining transition definitions that we will discuss, although it must be noted that regardless of the number of outcomes achieved or the order in which they are achieved, at no time will anything greater than a 100% credit per participant be awarded. In instances where participants seek a career in construction or construction-related fields, but through channels other than an apprenticeship program in a U.S. Department of Labor registered apprenticeship program, the transition outcome of alternative construction transition is available. So this outcome earns 70% of the total per participant credit. So examples of these would include industries or positions like facility maintenance, construction jobs, so the general trades, maybe painter, carpenter, labor that are not connected to a U.S. Department of Labor registered apprenticeship program, different jobs or apprenticeships with utilities, alternative energy such as solar panel installation, EV station installer technicians, broadband technicians. Again, construction and construction related jobs not in a registered apprenticeship program. Now with this, only final verification is accepted for this transition category. So applying to these positions or interviewing for these positions does not constitute a final verification. Only acceptance into an employment in those positions would allow a grantee to receive the alternative construction transition per participant allotment for that graduate. And then the final transition outcome available is called a secondary transition. These outcomes are for graduates that secure employment in a sector other than construction or pursue higher education or advanced training in other fields. So the secondary transition outcome earns 50% of the funding available on a per participant basis for transitions. I know I covered a lot there, so I'm going to take a moment and see if there are any questions relating to the various transition outcomes.
And there was one question that came up. I believe Monica answered it in terms of the list used to identify improved enrollment completions, etc.
Yeah, exactly. So for those that are not familiar with the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program, organizations that have not participated in our program before, there's an extensive series of onboarding webinars that we will provide that walk you through our grantee manual and also our IWRS software so that you can understand not only what those requirements are, but how you enter that information into the Illinois Works reporting system, and your assigned grant manager can assist you with understanding what those requirements are. And again, the grant managers review those on a monthly basis. We provide reports to our grantees based on those monthly reviews, and provide detailed instructions on what's needed to ensure that the different outcomes or benchmarks are achieved. Any other questions? Okay, excellent. So moving on to our fourth metric definitions. Again, we had talked about enrollment, completion, and then the various forms of transition. The final one is closeout. So the goal of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program closeout is to verify the completeness and quality of the data that is entered into the Illinois Works reporting system. Illinois Works utilizes a rolling closeout process, which culminates at the end of each grant year. So what we mean by that is each month, the grant managers verify enrollment metrics, and completion metrics and transition metrics. And during the closeout process, they will conduct a final review to ensure that all enrollment, completion, and transition information is provided accurately and completely for each program participant, but also any other program participants that maybe didn't complete the pre-apprenticeship program. We want to make sure that everyone that was entered into IWRS has the complete and accurate data for the level of outcome that they've achieved. So this all culminates at the end or at the beginning of the following grant year. Once completion for each participant has been verified, and all of the data in IWRS has been resolved, grantees will receive their closeout funds, which are typically 10% of the overall grant funding. So I say typically because in your initial grant year, so some of you, anyone really that is taking part in the NOFO could request to receive an advance on the grant. It's a one-time process that's available to organizations, and that advance comes out of the 10% of the closeout funding. So the closeout is reduced accordingly if an advance is received. So let's take a look at that funding formula. Again, we've talked about these different metrics: enrollment, completion, transition, and closeout. And here is how the funding is assigned. So based on 100% of a grant award, and let's say that was $100,000. We have an enrollment of 25%. So all of the enrollment activity in that case would be worth $25,000. And I think we talk about this a little bit more, but I'd mentioned we look at things on a per participant basis. So then we take that amount and we identify the number of individuals that were projected to be enrolled, and that's what allows us to see what an organization will earn in terms of reimbursement eligibility on a per participant basis. Similarly, completions are worth 30%. So 30% of the overall grant award. So if the overall grant award is 100,000, then you completions would be worth $30,000 in total. Transitions, that's worth 35% of the overall grant award. And then, as I mentioned, closeout reports are typically 10%. Each outcome metric must be verified exclusively through the data that's entered in IWRS. However, unlike enrollments, which are verified through the information provided entered exclusively by the grantee. Completions and transitions also require third-party verification information. Completion verification requires that a participant has successfully completed all the training modules and that their attendance including attendance rosters, their post assessments and credentials have all been entered into IWRS in their corresponding training modules. Each participant must also have certificates or credentials uploaded, for first aid CPR, OSHA 10, and then at least one of the nationally recognized pre-apprenticeship program certifications such as NCCR Core or Trades Futures MC3. Illinois Community College board approved certificates, or any other certificate that the grantees program had been approved to provide. They must all be entered into that IWRS as part of completion verification. Illinois Works requires that the attendance rosters, as I mentioned, are not only kept in their paper files, but also uploaded to IWRS. This system is designed to offer credit to programs to cover time delays between the achievement of metrics and securing full verification. So it incentivizes programs to quickly verify completions and maintain connections with participants to ensure their full transition into a registered apprenticeship program or the various other transition metrics that we had discussed. A participant does not always have to go through every level of those transitions. They will automatically be considered if they have the required documents right off the bat for, say, a full transition. They've enrolled in a registered apprenticeship program. We don't have to verify separately that they had applied to and received the primary transition preliminary. They can move right to that primary transition final. But again, alternative construction transitions and secondary transitions can only have that final verification step. There's no preliminary verification for secondary or alternative construction transitions. So looking at how these benchmarks break out, this is another example where I had kind of walked through with everyone. I do want to point out that the ultimate goal and we'll say this, we've said this before, we'll say it again, the ultimate goal of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program is for individuals to become journey persons in the trades. And that starts with them becoming apprentices. And so that is the focus of our performance-based funding, right? In order to have that tangible impact to communities that we had talked about, we need to ensure that the participants, that your graduates are applying to and enrolling in registered apprenticeship programs. So when we look at these different benchmarks, we can see that the transition component at 35% is the largest single performance-based funding mechanism. So while other pre-apprenticeship programs historically in the past have just said, okay, if you can get people in the door and graduate them through your program, that's a success. That's part of it. But as you can see, our focus is on that transition component. Any questions about that? Okay, I don't see any in the chat either, so we can move on. We've spoke a lot about that per participant allotment. This is the dollar amount allocated for each participant's outcome metric for the enrollment, completion, and transition phases. That closeout benchmark, again, that's the entire database as a whole needs to be finalized completely and accurately at the end of the year. for the closeout to be awarded. But the other three, enrollment, completion, and transition, are identified based on the funding benchmark percentage divided by the funding benchmark participant goal. So, I had made the example earlier that if you had a $100,000 grant, enrollment's worth 25%. So that's $25,000. If there were 10 people that your program was slated, that was your overall goal to enroll, 25,000 divided by 10, then you wind up with a $2,500 per participant allotment. We can look at where the goals are identified in the next example, and that is the proposed work plan. So as part of the NOFO application, each applicant will complete a proposed work plan. It's referred to as Attachment 1. This is the document where the applicant will outline the number of individuals that they plan to serve and provide instructional dates. So first off, we look at the number of individuals that they plan on recruiting. A recruitment is an individual who is interested in the program and has provided their contact information and is engaging in the interview process to be contacted for enrollment. An enrolled participant is an individual who completes that pre-screening, completes the application, has gone through the standardized interview, and then is ultimately offered to attend the program and has accepted the offer and actually begins attending training. Based on the enrolled participants, we'll have completed participants. So those are individuals who begin instruction, successfully complete all required modules and assessments, and obtain the industry recognized certifications and credentials as required for that grantee's program. We look at the total individuals transitioned with a primary outcome. So this is, again, that primary final that we had talked about, a graduate of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Training Program who has applied to and been accepted into a DOL registered apprenticeship program or has been sponsored into that DOL registered apprenticeship program. Now, a subcomponent of this, again, at a 75% level currently is individuals who have applied and have been placed on a waiting list for the DOL registered apprenticeship program. Then all other individuals the goal would be to either place them into the alternative construction transition or a secondary transition. So the alternative construction is a graduate of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program who does not enter a DOL registered apprenticeship program, but instead secures permanent employment in the utilities or other construction related work or advanced instruction in construction related training. And the secondary outcome is a graduate of the program who chooses to not apply to a DOL registered apprenticeship program, but instead actively participates in an alternative outcome, such as accepting a position, for employment in a field other than construction, registering with a college program, or enrolling in an advanced education program. So these key outcome metrics are what will be used to determine the overall grant award and the per participant allotment, as we discussed earlier. So the grantees will determine the number of participants they plan to enroll. And based on that, the Office of Illinois Works requires that 85% of those will successfully complete the pre-apprenticeship program. So again, based on the number that you had determined you would like to enroll in your program, That's your overall enrollment goal. 85% of those must successfully complete the program. And then at least 70% of that enrollment goal must transition on a primary transition basis. So that's enrollment into a DOL registered apprenticeship program. So again, I want to stress that the completion and transition metrics are related to enrollment. And as a result, applicants should set their enrollment numbers to those that they feel are realistic for their organization to complete and transition. Now, these are all tracked through IWRS, and programs will be able to identify the number of enrollments and completions that they see throughout the year. Any questions on all this information? Again, this is extremely important to understand how the performance-based funding elements of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program operate. So any questions as I pause here for a moment?
Looks like no questions are in chat at this point.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So I've mentioned a couple times that each grantee is assigned an Illinois Works grant manager. And that grant manager is primarily accountable for monitoring the compliance of the program by the grantee. So these responsibilities include supporting the implementation of the grant programs, ensuring budgets are within the scope of funding, enforcing regulatory compliance, ensuring grantees progress towards meeting the required outcomes of their goals, enforcing progressive corrective action elements, and then overall programmatic monitoring. Again, a lot of this is done on a monthly basis through a process in which we call compliance, where the Illinois Works Grant Manager reviews the data in IWRS to determine whether the enrollment, completion, and transition benchmarks have been met. So speaking of that monthly compliance, grant managers conduct that review, and they review the on a per participant basis, enrollment, completion, and transition. And based on a grantee's progress towards those goals, the grant manager provides grantees with a compliance rating and the amount of funding of reimbursement eligibility that has been earned based on the progress towards those goals. More information about the compliance review we'll touch on that in a little bit. But looking at this example, and I kind of walked us through this a little bit earlier. This example that's shown on the screen here is that a grantee has just completed their first cohort, and during the grant manager's monthly review, the grant manager has reviewed enrollment metrics and completion metrics for that first cohort. They have not yet reviewed transition metrics, and of course the closeout is something that happens at the very end of the year. So those two metrics have not been evaluated during this example month. But we can see that on the table here, the grant manager had verified enrollment for 15 individuals, and based on that per participant allotment, that funding of $2,500 per participant, that has allowed the grantee to have a reimbursement eligibility of $37,500 that has been earned. Now, I want to point out, as we had seen in that kind of three-headed chart, that reimbursement eligibility being earned is only one step. the next step, because we don't just at that point, the state of Illinois does not then cut a check for $37,500. Instead, what that means is now through the Office of Grants Management and the monthly reporting that is done there, which we'll talk about in a moment, the grantee can submit receipts for reimbursement on expenses, on allowable expenses that they have already incurred. And that will allow that funding will come out of the $37,500. There is no separate funding for expenses. So there are, if they had not earned that 37,000 and the 48,000 below it, then the receipts, the expenses that they had incurred would have to wait until maybe the next month's compliance when these would be hopefully earned. So anyway, on a similar basis, the grant manager was able to verify 14 individuals that had completed the program. Completions are a larger percentage of funding. I think the enrollment we had said was 25%. Completions are 30% of the overall funding. So you can see that on a per participant basis, that's a little bit higher than enrollments. And so the reimbursement eligibility there for that month was $48,000. All right. So once an overall progress rating is determined each month, each grantee will be mailed these monthly reports. One is a monthly compliance report, and one is a monthly compliance payment worksheet. So it's important to note here that, and this doesn't necessarily need to, be remembered, completely now. We'll certainly go over this with any organizations that are ultimately awarded grants in January. But although compliance ratings and reimbursement eligibility are directly linked in terms of, the better you perform on one of those, naturally the better you're going to perform on the other, because they're measuring essentially the same thing. You don't need to hit a certain compliance rating in order to receive funding, right? So even if you only had received one per participant allotment funding for, say, enrollment, your overall rating would be very low, but you would still be entitled to that $2,500 of reimbursement eligibility. So these two monthly reports, the monthly compliance report and the monthly compliance payment worksheet, illustrate those two concepts. The grant manager, the Illinois Works grant manager, is accountable for that programmatic monitoring, including the monthly compliance review. Grant managers conduct these compliance reviews to ensure that grantees are adhering to all program expectations based on the grant agreement and the approved work plan. So the monthly compliance report provides the grantee with an overall progress rating. The increase to their reimbursement cap based on that month review will be on there, in addition to notes regarding their progress rating and any relevant data trends identified in the review. Information detailed in the progress report is only a snapshot of what is entered in IWS since the previous month's review. So it's not a cumulative assessment. The progress rating is, but the identification of those data trends is done on a monthly basis. The specific per participant increases that we identify are done on a monthly basis. They're not meant to be aggregate, but again, that's all contained in what we call a monthly compliance report. The monthly compliance payment worksheet is meant to be aggregate, and it outlines the total number of enrollments, completions, primary transitions, secondary transitions, alternative construction transitions that your grant manager has identified. This report also provides grantees with a detailed outline of their performance-based payment funding formula and reimbursement maximums and grant award information. So there's more information about this in the grantee manual, section 11, finances, records, and reporting. But we'll take a look at the actual payment, an example payment worksheet and see what I mean by that aggregation. So, excuse me, every month, grantees would receive this spreadsheet, this report, based on that month's compliance. I know it's a little difficult to see here, but presumably this is a report based on an evaluation in April. And that month, the grant manager was able to identify 21 new enrollments in April. What we wind up seeing here is then based on a per participant allotment, which is also on this sheet, it's just not able to be seen here. The actual amount of reimbursement eligibility that is earned for that benchmark. If there had been completions or transitions, those would have been identified there as well. And it again aggregates this every month. So in May, that 21 would still be there for April, and grantee would be able to see as they progress through the year, all of the individuals, the number of individuals, I should say, that were verified for enrollment, for completion and transition, and a running total of what their grant to date reimbursement eligibility has become. Any questions about this?
No questions in chat.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. So the appropriate use of funds. As with any grant funding, funds must be used for the purpose of implementing Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program as outlined in the scope of the grant. Specific allowable grant costs were set forth in the applicable NOFO and the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program rules. Allowable cost expenditures must also comply with 2 CFR 200. If there are questions regarding specific expenditures throughout the year, your Illinois Works grant manager will be able to assist you with those. So one of the things I had mentioned previously was carryover credit. Due to the timing of programming and cycles of registered apprenticeship program enrollment periods, it's possible and most likely probable that a participant will attend training in one of our grantees programs in one grant year, but not complete or fully transition into a registered apprenticeship program into the following grant year, and maybe even beyond. So as a result, a carryover credit is provided to grantees for their pre-apprenticeship program graduates related outcome metrics. If the outcome metric takes place within the same grant agreement as the original enrollment. So that gets confusing there for a second, but we'll kind of walk through this. What we're talking about is, as you can see, an organization that's going through this NOFO process and is ultimately awarded a grant begins their initial grant year in 2025, the 2025 calendar year. When that calendar year is up, they have the opportunity to be renewed for a second calendar year. It'll be their first renewal year, but it'll be their second year of operating the grant. This is based on outcome metrics, based on their compliance ratings, whether or not they can be offered that renewal. And if they are, then they can continue to earn, outcome metrics from individuals that they supported during that initial grant year. So the Illinois Works grant pre-apprenticeship program grant agreements last a maximum of 3 years. So the initial grant year, followed by up to 2 renewals, and they're all extensions of the original grant agreement. So it all becomes cumulative. But there is a maximum of 3 years. So the initial year, a first renewal year, and a second renewal year. So that total of 3 years after that, in order to continue as a operating the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program, the organization would have to go through the NOFO process, which is why we have several of our existing grantees on this call and participating in the NOFO process this year. All right, so looks like we are going to jump back into Mentimeter at this time and see if we can unseat our champion. It was getting pretty close there at the toward the end. So hopefully you're all still logged in. There we go. So we're going to start with our next question. So I believe this one's going to be true or false. The performance-based payment model seeks to link funding to impact. True or false? And the purpose of the performance-based payment model is to link funding to impact. True. Everyone got that right. Now it's just a matter of who was faster. Oh, Nemo shot out there right away. It's close though. Everyone did really well. We have three people here within shot at first place. All right. Our next question. There are 4 funding benchmarks: enrollment, completion, transition, and closeout. Illinois Works operates on 4 funding benchmarks: enrollment, completion, transition, and closeout. True or false? Yes, that's true. There we go. Hopefully everyone had gotten that one right. That we spent a little while on that just now. All right. Our next question. Illinois Works is an innovative model to reinvigorate our workforce for the future. Illinois Works is an innovative model to reinvigorate our workforce for the future. True or false?
It's tricky.
That's true. I guess some might argue that that's an opinion, but we're going to go ahead and say that's definitely true. Agent X9 is very quick. It's going to be tough to unseat him or her. All right, next question. Primary transitions are divided into 3 categories: preliminary, intermediate, and final. Primary transitions are divided into 3 categories: preliminary, intermediate, and final.
Hey, what's up?
True or false?
Good. Good.
Chris, I think you might be unmuted there. If you have a question, you're welcome to let us know. Yes, that's correct. The answer is false. We only have 2 categories there: primary transition preliminary and primary transition final. It's still close. It's still close. All right. I think this might be the last question in this part of the quiz. Carryover credits are earned when a grantee exceeds their enrollment goals. True or false? Carryover credits are earned when a grantee exceeds their enrollment goals. True or false? That is false. Carryover credits are outcome metrics and reimbursement credits earned by grantees in their second and third grant years based on the completion and transition of a participant enrolled from the previous year. So it just carries over from one year to the next. All right. Well, we had a little bit of change at the top of the leaderboard here. Not the very top. Agent X9 has stayed with us pretty consistent, but we still have a lot of opportunity to get on the podium there. All right. Any questions before we take? I think we're scheduled to take a short break here. Any questions?
No questions in chat, Dan.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and take a 13-minute break. So that way we can come back right at 11:10. And we'll start the data management and reporting section. So please be back at 11:10. Thank you. Okay, it's 11:10 on the dot. Thank you, everyone. I hope you had a very restful break. I know I got up and walked around a little bit, get the blood flowing. But we are in the home stretch. A lot of good information here packed into the last 30 minutes or so. So let's go ahead and get started. Our next topic will be regarding data management and reporting. Through this section, you'll be able to describe the origins and role of the Illinois Works Reporting System, IWRS, comply with the GATA requirements, that's the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, accurately and timely submit standardized GATA reports tied to the grant agreement. Those are the Periodic Financial Report, the PFR, and the Periodic Performance Report, the PPR. So, as we've talked about, the Illinois Works reporting system is used to capture data on the participants and the grantees pre-apprenticeship program. This was developed by the Office of Illinois Works in partnership with Southern Illinois University's Center for Workforce Development. So it was built off of the Illinois WorkNet website and is now known as IWRS. The system was fully launched about a little more than 2 years ago in February of 2022. And due to its custom design, it allows grantees the ability to track pre-apprenticeship program inquiries, partnerships, grantee partnerships, really the whole life cycle of the pre-apprenticeship program. A key element of course, will be identifying program completion. That's especially important given the performance-based nature of this pre-apprenticeship program. So the system allows grantees to track key information about participants' progress through their engagement with the program, as I mentioned, from the initial inquiry, maybe a contact through social media, through their application, through an enrollment, and then, of course, through the program itself, enrollment in training modules, attendance, training completion, transition, and follow-up. We refer to a lot of these as funding benchmarks. So many of you might already be familiar with the periodic performance report. Since the Office of Illinois Works requires grantees to enter that data into IWRS, when a grantee submits the PPR, additional supporting documentation is not required. For those unfamiliar with the PPR, we will talk about it a little bit later at the end of this section, but just know that it's not a duplicate of that information. Can we go back to the last slide? I just wanted to highlight here how this is really the life cycle of the pre-apprenticeship program, something that our existing grantees should be very familiar with. If you're not and you become one of our grantees, you certainly will. But this just highlights how IWRS can help monitor the performance of the different facets of that pre-apprenticeship life cycle. So I talked about inquiries, whether it's a social media contact, that's all part of outreach and recruitment. And we can keep track of the number of inquiries that are not then moved forward to, applications or enrollments. We can then see, how many individuals enrolled into the various programs or are currently enrolled in the various programs, or for an individual grantee, they would be able to do the same thing just for their own program. We can monitor program completions for the entire network. And again, grantees can do that for themselves. And then identify, who has received transition services or who is in a transition state. So these are very important data elements for not only for grantees to ensure that they're meeting their targets, but also for the Office of Illinois Work to report to the state legislator, the governor's office, and DCO at large. All right, thank you. So we do want to talk about performance gaps. So given the nature of the performance-based model, data entry is more labor intensive and time intensive than other programs that your organization may have worked with in the past. And so accurate and timely data becomes a cornerstone for reimbursement. Again, we had walked through before the break the different funding benchmarks of enrollment, completion, and transition, and how those are monitored on a monthly basis. So without that data being entered into IWRS, we cannot monitor that on a monthly basis, and therefore we cannot provide reimbursement eligibility on that monthly basis. So it's extremely important. As established in GATA and explained in the Notice of Funding Opportunity for each Illinois Works grant year, grantees do have the opportunity to renew their grant 2 times after the initial grant year. So when you include the grant year and those 2 additional renewals, it allows an organization to implement the pre-apprenticeship program for a maximum of 3 years before having to reapply through the merit-based competitive process known as NOFO. In the fall of each grant year, Illinois Works will alert grantees whether or not they've been invited to renew their grant agreement. Grantees will be invited to renew based on their program performance. So those monthly compliances, which are cumulative, will ultimately determine their program compliance. The performance threshold to qualify for renewal will be provided to grantees in August or September of each grant year. Grantees invited to renew will be asked to submit a grant renewal application. This application may include a grant application form, proposed work plan, proposed curriculum, staffing plan, marketing plan, program improvement plan, updated budget, and any state required disclosure forms. So additional forms or information may also be requested by the Office of Illinois Works. The application that this NOFO is calling for is for 1 year, though. Again, the renewals are optional and they're based on performance, but this NOFO is for a single grant year beginning January 1st, 2025 and running through December 31st, 2025. All programming must take place during that programmatic calendar grant year, and renewals cannot be guaranteed. They're based purely on performance during that grant period. There is an Office of Grant Management. They are the liaison between the Office of Illinois Works and the Illinois Office of the Comptroller. The Office of Grant Management, or OGM, they establish the grant agreements currently for the pre-apprenticeship program. They process budget modifications for our program. They accept and approve the PPR and PFR on a monthly basis for our grantees. They review and approve the grantee expenses, and they submit approval for disbursement to the Office of Comptroller based on the approved expenses and the Office of Illinois Works reimbursement maximum that has been identified for each grantee. So again, it's always those 2 things. In order to receive any reimbursement from the state of Illinois, first has to go through that performance-based compliance process where a reimbursement maximum is identified based on the per participant allotment of the benchmarks, and then the Office of Grants Management review of the PFR and approved expenses. So looking at those reports a little bit more, the PPR, the Periodic Performance Report, is a standard, uniform, statewide performance progress reporting format used by all state agencies to collect performance information from the recipients of state grant awards. The PPR is due on a quarterly or monthly basis, as outlined in the grant agreement, and the grantee performance data is really tracked in IWRS. So in this case, it's simply a attestment that the information has been entered into IWRS. The periodic financial report similarly is a standard uniform statewide financial reporting system or reporting format used by all state agencies. But to collect, instead of performance information, it's used to collect financial information for the recipients of state grant awards. So this is always used for grants unless statutorily exempted, as documented in the Catalog of State Financial Assistance or the Uniform Grant Agreement. All other awards are subject to this PFR. With the pre-apprenticeship program, the PFR is submitted on a monthly basis for reimbursement, and all PFR and expenses are due no later than 30 days after the end of each month. More information about these reports and other grantee resources are available on the GATA resource website. That link has been put into the chat for everyone. There's also on that on our NOFO page, you can watch a session recording of a GATA training for new state applicants, where GATA pre-qualification and reporting requirements for grantees are outlined. And so we have just placed our NOFO landing page link in the chat as well. Hopefully everyone already has that, but we'll give that to you many times because we want to make sure you're accessing all of the information that's on it. So looking at some of the best practices for these, ensuring that your outcome metrics are realistic for your organization is critical. Again, we're not looking for organizations to kind of overpromise and underdeliver. If you're unsure, move toward lower metrics, knowing that you can always, meet and exceed those and grow in future years. Make sure you're planning now for a data entry coordinator. Again, for those of you that are new to the Office of Illinois Works performance-based system, it's extremely important to have that data entered into IWRS in real time. And so a dedicated data entry coordinator is critical for that success. Plan now for a financial team or an individual that will manage all the financial reporting and GATA requirements. That's not unique to the Office of Illinois Works. So if you're already a grantee with the state of Illinois for other grants, you might already be familiar with that and have a financial team in place. If you do not, then now is certainly the time to make sure you do. Planning for post-instruction follow-up is critical. Again, going back to our benchmark discussion, it's the largest component, 35% of the overall funding is dedicated to transitioning. So having that a transition service coordinator and ensuring that your participants will be able to transition into registered apprenticeship programs is very much the goal of the program. And also knowing that Quarterly follow-up is required with this grant 1 year after instruction ends. So make sure there's a plan for that post-instruction follow-up. And it really should be incorporated through the training, through the cohort itself, so that the participants know that they will be alumni and that they will continue to engage you even after they have graduated. And then having not only making sure that you have a data entry coordinator, but also having someone who will be able to help verify that data. A data quality management system is essential to making sure that organizations are receiving the credit for the things that they've done. So, with all that having been said, let's move into our final practice round and see if Agent X9 can maintain their solid lead there. We also need to see who's going to come out second and third. So for our first question of this final section, the Office of Illinois Works, in partnership with Southern Illinois University's Center for Workforce Development, developed the IWRS system. True or false? Illinois Works with Southern Illinois University developed Illinois Works reporting system. That is true. All right. Job. All right. Well, we have our top three. Let's get the other folks back into it. The Mentimeter link is in the chat, so we can all keep working towards it. All right. Our next question. IWRS allows grantees to track pre-apprenticeship program inquiries, participants, and grantee partnerships. True or false? IWRS allows grantees to track pre-apprenticeship program inquiries and participants, but also their grantee partnerships. That is true. That is true. We can definitely and encourage you to, you'll learn more about it, but you can, we ask you to enter your instructor information in there, partnership information. A lot of information is captured in IWRS. All right, good job, everyone. Check our leaderboard. Oh, we had a couple people. There we go. It looked like Earthman might take second place. There we go. Yep. Little movement at the top. All right. Grantee performance data is tracked in IWRS. As a result, additional supporting documentation is not required when submitting the PPR. True or false? Since grantee performance data is tracked in IWRS, additional supporting documentation is not required. That is true. You still have to submit the PPR, but you do not submit additional information. All right. Still got a game ahead. Okay. Given the nature of a performance-based model, data entry is easier and less time-intensive than most programs you may have experienced in the past. True or false? Given the nature of the performance-based payment model, data entry is easier and less time-intensive. That is definitely false. Okay. It's still close. Let's keep it going. All right, number 5. The Office of Grant Management, OGM, is the liaison between Illinois Works and the Office of Comptroller and approves grantee expenses. True or false? The Office of Grant Management is the liaison between Illinois Works and the Office of the Comptroller. That is true. Very, very important part of this grant program. Looks like still very close for second and third place. All right, our final question. This will determine a lot of the outcomes. Carryover credits are earned when a grantee exceeds their enrollment goals. True or false? Carryover credits are earned when a grantee exceeds their enrollment goals. That is false. Carryover credits are outcome metrics and reimbursement credits earned by grantees in the second and third grant years based on the initially enrolled participants from the previous years. So I think we captured that same question last time, didn't we? All right, so we have a very close one. I think Agent X9 maintained a solid lead. Earthman was able to squeak out a win. What's that, on 47 points or so? So good job, everyone. There we go. Some horns. All right. Thank you very much for your participation. It does help for you to be actively involved, so I really appreciate everyone who participated in the Mentimeter. We do have an evaluation through Mentimeter at the end. I would definitely like everyone to stay on. Don't log out. Make sure you can give us your feedback. So I'm going to hand the microphone over and let them
Great.
take the evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Now it's time for the evaluation. And so please help us out. We are also a continuous improvement shop, meaning we always want to be getting better. So we just have a few questions. If you can stick with us and stay in Mentimeter, that was super fun to have your engagement in the previous ones, and let's keep it going. Please share your views on this training by rating the following statements from 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. To what extent did it meet your expectations? How likely are you to attend a similar event in the future? And how likely are you to recommend this training to others? Thanks for the art. So we've got 4. I think we had 7 participating before. All right. Thank you for that. And how relevant was the course to what you wanted to learn about the subject matter? To what extent do you agree that the course was relevant to what you wanted to learn about this subject matter? And they may be in a different order on your screen, I'm not sure, but just make sure you're choosing the verbiage that matches what you feel. Thank you for that. Hopefully you can just click a button. I'm going to keep going. Do you plan to apply what you learned? Strongly disagree up till strongly agree. Thank you. We have a few who strongly agree. Thank you so much. And 1 somewhat agree. Thank you. What improvements might you recommend? And I'll pause briefly here. Feel free to just type that in. If you don't have any suggestions, if you could do us a favor, just put NA. That way we know that you're not still writing. Now we have several people who are in the Mentimeter, so I'll just give it another 30 seconds in case you're writing. More details is related to the manual. Thank you. I'm going to keep going. What did you find effective? If we make changes, what would you recommend that we keep? Again, I'll give you a minute to respond. And if you have no response, then please put NA. Everything related up to and including a grant application. Okay, great. And more detail regarding the verifications and eligibility process. Great. Very nice. Thank you. I'm going to keep going. And this is the last question. Is there anything else that you think we should know? Again, if you don't have any comments, you just feel free to put NA, and otherwise just type something brief, and we will be sending you on your way shortly. All right. I am going to say goodbye. Keep writing if you're doing that, but thank you so much for your interest. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your commitment to your communities. Best wishes on a successful grant application. If you need any help, Dr. Carlita had put the Illinois Works email address there. It's at the bottom of the chat. Feel free to drop a line. And great, I do see a couple responses here. The payment structure is not as simple as it is, and there should be more detail. Okay, consider not repeating content that can be viewed in prior recordings. Thank you. Very helpful. All right, we appreciate your comments. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for all that you do, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.